All right, I definitely need to raise the vibration because the concert that's going on above my head is it's not in alignment with my intention. So you can repeat after me, or you can do what you choose. Always remember, this is a learning, growing, and healing space. So learn with me, grow with me, heal with me. I celebrate this opportunity to show up as the best version of myself. I welcome change. I welcome growth. I am open to new possibilities. I am ready to receive. I am coachable. I am willing to share what I learn so others can grow as well. I recognize that everyone is not in the same wisdom space and leave room for others to grow at their own pace. I am worthy of grace. I extend grace to myself and others. I am valued and valuable. My worth is immeasurable. I am a beacon of light. I am a living example of faith. My faith is unshakable even in the wait. I honor the space between what is and what's to come. In all things, I offer gratitude. In all things, I am passionate. Ashe, ashe, ashe. What's up, passionates? We're down to the last 3 episodes for the season. Have you enjoyed season 1 thus far? I really hope that you have. It has truly been my pleasure to share my insights and perspectives with you, as well as some of the ups and downs of the journey of running this one-woman show. There's so many things running through my mind right now. I'm thinking about what a whirlwind 2021 has been. I'm thinking about the growth and improvements in some critical relationships, as well as the dissolution of others. I'm thinking about the conversation we had in episode 1, where I shared with you the journey of how I came to host this by myself. Taking this step was big, and not just because of the investment of time or money, and not just because I was stepping out to do this on my own. Believe it or not, it was big because I didn't know what the impact would be on the relationship with my former co-host. I know someone is probably wondering why I would even care. This moment that we're in right now has its roots in conversation and action from different friendships, and that specific friendship was a significant contributor. Did I like how that pod ended? No. There were questions left unanswered and things left hanging in the balance. And I'm a closure person. I like a good final farewell, kind of last chance to ask me anything, true confessions kind of conversation. Even if I walk away with questions unanswered, it's not from a lack of opportunity to ask. It's more because I'm an analyzer. So for me, answers often lead to more questions, and that kind of irritates people. Regardless, the business relationship impacted the personal relationship, and it made me think of a note that I had written in my phone, which was burn the ships. So I didn't recall exactly where I'd heard the statement or what it was in reference to, but scrolling through my notes in my phone, I would pass it often, and I knew that I wanted to talk about it with y'all at some point. So I finally sat down to search the interwebs to find the quote. And I found different versions of the story, but the general consensus was that Hernan Cortés, a conquistador in 1519, made it to the New World. But there were rumblings and mumblings amongst his men about retreat. So he burned the ships so they couldn't turn back. An article on developgoodhabits.com said, in reality, Cortés didn't actually burn the ships. Rather, he abandoned them on shore after removing useful components that could help the troops build and reinforce their settlement in Mexico. Still, he rendered the ships useless in terms of traveling, so he removed any perceived safety net that his men may have been holding on to. Whether he burned them to ashes or he parked them in an unmarked dock, the consensus is that 2 years later, Cortés and his men conquered the Aztec Empire. This reminds me of a post that I put up about going through something, and my mentor, Rule, had commented saying sometimes the only way out is through. Good advice. So anyway, I was satisfied with that. But it brought up another question. What's the significance or real meaning or indication of ship as a suffix? Now, for you newbies, I probably should have let y'all know, like in advance, that I'm a nerd, but I didn't. So, surprise. Okay, now you know. According to etymonline.com, ship is a word-forming element meaning quality or condition, act, power, skill, office, position, relation between. So there's the Middle English ship, and I don't know how to pronounce a lot of these, so I'm guessing. Middle English ship, SCHIPE. There's the Old English, SCIEPE, the Anglican, SCIP. All of these, the state or condition of being. From the Proto-Germanic, it's skepi, SKEPI. And these are cognates of Old Norse skapper, Danish skap, Old Frisian, Old Dutch, and the German is shaft. From skap, which is to create, ordain, or appoint. From the PIE root, skep, forming words meaning to cut, scrape, hack, right? So all of that is related to shaping, right? But ship often forms abstracts to go with corresponding concretes. Friend, friendship, relation, relationship. Okay. If you weren't familiar with cognate, the definition for the example of cognate, when you're learning a new language, this is per vocabulary.com. When you're learning a new language, a cognate is an easy word to remember because it looks and means the same thing as a word you already know, right? So in English, gratitude, in Spanish, gratitud, they look the same, they mean the same. Okay, so the reason behind all of this research was that while I read several blogs on ways burn the ships or burn the boats could be applied to daily life, there was something more that was resounding with me. And that was burn the ships, save the bridges. We know that a bridge is a structure built over something to provide passage, yes? So we next have to identify what it is we're crossing. When it comes to our interactions, that could be feelings and love languages. That could be cultural or religious differences. It could be habits or dispositions. Just being around others can be a job in and unto itself. Those waters can be still but very deep. They can be shallow but rocky. They can be easy like a stream or violent like rapids. If I'm on one side of these feelings and you're on the other, we then would need to build a bridge to get from my side to yours, or so that we can meet in the middle and decide where we want to go from there. Enter the ever familiar bridge to or bridge of communication. We have to be able to communicate to navigate the sometimes peaceful, sometimes treacherous waters of other people's personality. And while I'm not 100% sure if trust, integrity, honor, respect, connection, affection, affirmation, support, compassion, love, etc. While I'm not sure if these are individual bridges or support structures within the communication bridge, I know they're all vital to this ship sailing smoothly. So now how does this all tie back in with burning the ship and saving the bridges? Okay, well, going back to my former co-host and my previously made point, the business relationship halted. And because of how the business was handled, the personal relationship, right, our friendship was damaged badly. And so while there's a pyromaniac and an arsonist saying, huzzah, let it burn, while that ship was damaged, the bridge can still be salvaged. And I respect the position, damn that, burn it all to hell. If everyone handled everyone that way, how many of us would actually have anyone? A lot of our mothers could have and should have dropped us off in the middle of the city dump for all the times and ways that we dropped the ball, for all the times and ways that we embarrassed ourselves, for the ways that we've embarrassed them. But there was grace for us, and that wasn't because they knew or understood anatomy and physiology, so they knew that our prefrontal cortexes were not fully developed. Because even if that was the case, what would be the excuse for everybody 26 and older still doing a terrible job at life? So yeah, I get it. To some, what's the point of leaving the bridge intact? Because you never know when you'll have to cross it again. Story time. We'll call the characters Sheila, Kathy, and Quinn. Sheila and Quinn used to work together. There was tumult in that working relationship. When Sheila left, the ship was dissolved, but the bridge was still intact. Later down the line, Sheila meets Kathy and they build their own ship. Sheila and Kathy talk about things from before they knew each other, and one of those things is Sheila and Quinn's ship. Kathy eventually meets Quinn. Kathy talks too much, and she starts talking to Quinn about things that Sheila shared in confidence. Quinn was the deciding factor for an opportunity that Sheila really wanted. So after chatty Kathy let her mouth do the 100-meter, Sheila's opportunity was gone. When Sheila and Quinn parted ways at the beginning of the story, Sheila had the foresight to let the ship burn, but leave the bridge untouched in case she needed to cross it again. Had Kathy not been so eager to give her mouth so much liberty, Sheila probably would have gotten the opportunity that she was in the running for. Important takeaway. Sometimes we burn ships because we want to completely eradicate the access, and other times we burn the ships so we can board or start new ones. Some relationships need to end as they are so they can begin anew, as they should be or as they always should have been. And on the topic of access, the bridges allow us access when there is no ship. I don't need a ferry to get from New York to New Jersey because the George Washington Bridge allows me the access to cross the Hudson. It's the same thing. I don't need to like you or welcome you in my space to be able to benefit from something you offer. Likewise, you don't need to like me or welcome me in your space to provide a service. We only need to be able to bridge the gap in the middle where the exchange takes place and where our needs are mutually met. I told you earlier that I'm a closure person. If the bridge is still intact, even after the ship is docked or burned, there's room for that closure conversation, even if that conversation is years later. There's someone right now who's wishing they could apologize for how they wronged you. They would even be willing to do it at the risk of being berated and besieged with hateful words. There's someone right now that's wishing they could have one more in-person conversation with someone who's already transitioned. And what if you were in Sheila's position? What if the perfect opportunity presented itself and all you had to do was communicate with Quinn briefly to get it? You don't have to board or build another boat. You don't have to do soirees or social gatherings. You just have to have the willingness to communicate one or two times and the opportunity is yours. Would you want the opportunity? Let me ask that again. I want you to listen carefully. Would you want the opportunity? And the reason I repeat it is because wanting the opportunity is not the same as seizing the opportunity. Kind of like the person who can't ever or doesn't ever attend functions, but they always want to be invited. Would you want the access, or would you want the access to be denied before you even have a chance to consider it? And yes, there are people that make you feel like nothing in the world is worth having to interact with them ever again. But I'll say 8 times out of 10, that's ego-based. And when we get ego out of the way, there are doors we can finally walk through because nothing and no one was actually ever in the way in the first place. But we're going to save that anecdote for another episode because y'all know I got stories for days. So I came across an article on success.com which said that in the Hebrew tradition, in ancient times, Israelite armies would besiege enemy cities from 3 sides only, leaving open the possibility of flight. They understood that so long as the enemy saw that they had an escape route available, they would not fight with the utmost earnestness and energy. In most cases, this played right into the besiegers' hands. So how and why is this relevant to what we're talking about today? Well, because in the original context, burning the ships was about eliminating a means of retreat. And in this example, the means of retreat is exactly how the enemy was defeated. Theoretically, the Spaniards would have or could have met a similar fate if retreat would have been an available option. If you don't burn the ship, you leave room to go back. And if it came to a point where it needed to end, should you really be going back to it in its original form? Isn't starting over fresh the ideal? Keeping the bridge in place while we build new ships allows us to see how to better structure the new ship and cross the otherwise uncrossable. And just to really air somebody out, some of us are out here burning the bridges and staying in the ship. So we're just out here throwing Molotov cocktails on a crossover point and still trying to sail along casually while it's literally raining fire on our heads. And we just want to pretend like that's okay, like no one else notices. And like the others in the ship aren't plotting and planning whether they're going to jump overboard and hope for the best or disembark at the first opportunity and never look back. Like, make it make sense. Burn the ship, save the bridge. You can still cross the waterways, valleys, or canyons. Burn the bridge, you're left to rely on the stability of the ship. And at the point where it's clear you're burning bridges, you're showing your reliability. The ship soon fall apart regardless. Passionates, you're going to do what works best for you, and I honor that. By now, you should know I want nothing more than for you to consider all perspectives before making your ultimate decision. Burn the ships. Whether it's so you don't go back to something that didn't serve you well or didn't serve you at all, whether it's so you can get a fresh start, a do-over, or not even because something was wrong, but because you needed more room in your ship. I think that you should let it burn. But the bridges, salvage those. Even the ones that are in disrepair. The bridge of communication, if you're not communicating well, then figure out where the disconnect is and fix that. Now, if we're counting trust as its own bridge, that's a little harder because you may not feel comfortable to trust that person again. And I get it. And still, if the trust was why the ship needed to be burned in the first place, you don't have to be willing to put your life in someone's hands to communicate with them. Burn the ship, communicate why the trust is irreparable, cross the bridge, move along. Meditate on this, think it over, think it through. Have a discussion about it. Leave me some feedback in the comments. And as a matter of fact, drop one of the talking head emojis if you want to discuss this further in a live episode. We can either go live here or we can do it on the gram. Y'all know I read comments, so let me know as soon as possible and let me see what I can make happen. In the meantime, I'm going to go tend to my own bridges and ships. And who knows? Maybe me and my old friend will board a new ship. And maybe we'll communicate openly and honestly and close all boarding, but continue to be a resource to each other in the future. Who knows? I don't. I know I want you to go forth. I want you to be great. I want you to be filled with bliss, be armed and empowered with knowledge, burn the ships, but not the bridges, and all things be passionate. Later. I'll see you next week.